Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar hosted by Share Cafe, one of Australia's leading news sites for ASX company, fund manager and general finance news. I'm David Tasker and I'll be hosting the webinar today with your usual host, Tim McGowan, taking a much deserved break. These webinars, which have proven to be very successful over the past 18 months, were created for two reasons. One, to identify and bring to you genuine hidden gems, companies on the ASX that you may not be aware of or may not have even heard of. But they're also created to give you direct access to these companies, with management presenting the company to you and you being given the opportunity to ask questions of management. So don't forget, ask questions. This week, the Share Cafe team have done it again and uncovered some real hidden gems. I recommend you watch each presentation and think up some questions for the presenters. This is your opportunity to learn as much about these companies as you can. Right, let's get into our first presentation. First, we will hear from Envirosuite, ASX code EVS, market cap $282 million. Envirosuite is an advanced environmental intelligence platform which makes critical operational decisions while minimising impact to the community and planet. We welcome Jason Cooper, CEO. Jason, over to you.
Thanks, David. Thanks for the opportunity to talk today to your audience and your listeners. So Envirosuite is an Australian company based here in Melbourne, but we have a global reach with over 400 customers around the world. Today, I'm going to talk you through what we do and some examples of how we benefit customers around the world. Go to the next slide, please. So Envirosuite, by its name, is an environmentally focused company, and we believe environmental intelligence is the key to improving the well-being of people and the planet. We recognise that communities have to coexist along with industries, and what we look for is the intersection of how industries can thrive and communities can grow at the same time, whilst minimising the impact to the environment. Next slide, please. We operate in three environments: in air, on land, and in water. So in air, we have an aviation suite of software products. In land, we go by the term Omnis, which is Latin for everything. And in that, we have the broadest capability globally of an environmental intelligence software platform. And in EVS water, we're looking at drinking water, treatment facilities, sewage networks. So I'm going to give you a bit of an understanding of each one now. If we go to the next slide. Focusing on airports, we're number one globally within commercial aviation airports. So that is your Heathrows, your Los Angeles, your New Yorks, your Tullamarine and Mascots here. And so what we look at is when a plane comes into land, we're actually able to measure the noise that it emits at landing or takeoff, and from overlaying that with fairly complex models on radar feeds, actually the speed of which it comes down the descent. Now, why is that important? Airports around the world need to understand what is the noise impact to their communities around them. I'm sure many of the listeners have flown into Heathrow and see that the houses are stacked up against their side, or even at Mascot, the flight path going directly over Sydney. So if we go to the next slide there, what we're really wanting to do is focus on the community engagement within airports. So this is an example of protesters looking at being quite disgruntled with excessive noise from planes landing and taking off. We focus on solving that problem through a community engagement piece, as well as understanding what is the noise impact of planes. So if you look at the next slide, we're starting to go through here through our software. We track individual flight paths, individual planes coming in, and we visualize what that airport noise impact is going to be. And we work with airports around the world, so they use our software. It's embedded into their operations. But importantly here, we're empowering the communities to connect with airports. If you are feeling that there was excessive noise, we give you a portal to go in. You can see which flight path directly affected you from that portal. And you can provide feedback into airports to say, this was my feeling, this is what I experienced. And the airports then proactively work with the communities to make sure that they're minimising that disruption. So as I said, globally, we are number one within the commercial aviation part. If we go to the next slide, we'll start to focus in on the Omnis platform, which is directly looking up air quality, water quality, odor, noise, and vibration. There's a really bad statistic around the impact of air pollution on our communities around the world. And the World Health Organization put out this stat recently, around 7 million deaths a year are contributable to poor air quality. Now, we're not making the air quality sensor. Ours is a software play here, but we connect up to existing air sensors or instrumentation that may go in. So let's look at that, the next slide. Here is an example of one of our product managers going to a mining site here in Australia, and it shows the impact of iron ore dust if not managed correctly. This was a car that was parked in the car park for 4 days. It's actually located up in Port Hedland, where there is a major loading facility there. And that iron ore has to shift along that conveyor belt for about 2 kilometres and goes onto ships. All of the major mining companies at Port Hedland use our software to actually understand what is going to be the impact. So the power of our platform, we can actually predict 24 hours out what are the right operating parameters to effectively manage their asset or their industrial facility. In this case, it's Port Hedland and that facility. So we go to the next slide. We're starting to now really address this predictive part. So monitor, predict, and plan with that continual situational awareness. What that means is that's constantly updating the model. The image on the right, you can see our software actually being used. And so that can be applied to different types of facilities. And while I gave you the example of mining and Port Hedland, we also have waste facilities, landfill facilities, industrial facilities, and wastewater from an odor perspective. And they use this and embed this software tool into their operational plans. So they can actually forecast, at 3 p.m. tomorrow, where they should be operating on their facility to minimize the impact that they're having on the communities that they affect. We go to the next slide. So urbanisation is a really, really strong driver globally, right? More people are moving into cities all around the world. What is that having an impact on? It's having an impact on the quality of water, on air, and noise. Now, this is not a trend that's going to stop, right? More people are going to move into cities, but we're not going to stop the quality of life that we want to have. And let's start with the first topic, which is drinking water. So next slide shows you an image of, a poor water quality situation. None of us would accept this. The water utilities around the world, they need to provide clear drinking water. That's the first part. It has to meet regulation control. What we've seen with the impacts of climate change, however, are the number of variables coming into that water supply chain. So there's a lot of treatment that has to go before you get that clean drinking water. Those drinking water and desalination plants around the world, they require electricity and they require chemicals to actually provide that output. What we've developed here is a product which we call Optimizer, which is a software solution that sits into water facilities. And that will then focus on using artificial intelligence and deterministic modeling ways to reduce the energy and also the chemical dosage required. So this has a strong return on investment for our water utility companies around the world. So whilst we maintain or improve the water quality, we're actually reducing the energy and the chemicals that go in. So moving to the next slide. So that gives you an example there of actually the water process plant in action. We actually recently were recognised globally with this award, being recognised by Frost and Sullivan for a digital twin. So this will go into an existing facility and have a substantial impact, addressing climate change, as well as addressing the bottom line of the way that those facilities are run. Moving to the next slide, we talk about a different offering in our water group, which is what we call Suex. Think of the sewerage networks that go around in all of the major towns around the world. That sewerage network sits underground, but if there's a leak or if there's a break or there's corrosion, then we don't know where that actually is. And so large areas of road are dug up to identify the problem. There's also impacts around methane. There's also impacts around other gases that are emitted. So we worked with the University of Queensland to bring a product to market Next slide, which will show you here how we can actually, via software models, identify areas of impact. Now, what we're looking for is corrosion. What we're looking for is H2S and methane. So first of all, addressing the safety part, we're actually able to identify where buildup of methane gases are and also where H2S is. And so that from a safety perspective, we can actually start to manage and predict. Importantly, from corrosion, we can actually see where there are going to be areas. And so that red on that image could show you areas where we can mitigate that or where corrective action needs to take place. Next slide. So momentum is building. Envirosuite is a fast-growing company. Last year, we had 24% growth year on year within our Omnis part. And we were selected as part of consortium within our aviation business for NASA for supersonic testing. Next slide. And that is a close on that. So I think we're ready to take any questions.
Thanks, Jason. A great presentation. A couple of questions for me is the addressable market. For each of these business units, what sort of market size or market opportunity is there?
Yeah, we're breaking that down. So as a company whole, we have a $4 billion serviceable addressable market. So it's a very large market to go after. Water is the biggest of that market with identified $2.8 billion. So those are very, very large market. And that's the one that we're really putting effort behind. And we're seeing some really good, strong traction to get through. The Omnis part has around $1.1 billion market. And then the aviation is a smaller part with what we currently serve.
And in terms of what it could grow to, has there been any independent predictions on what that market could be in 4 to 5 years' time?
What we're seeing certainly from a climate change perspective and the investment into water infrastructure, if you look at the back of Biden's bill that has recently passed in North America, significant amount of money is now flowing into water. So we probably need to go back and have that independently assessed. Is that growing now? I think with the impact around methane and on the back of COP26, you would see that certainly from our Omnis, our environmental platform, we're getting a stronger inbound lead, so that potentially that is growing as well. But it probably is time that we get that independently updated.
And just talking about leads, how does the lead process work? And then from lead to delivery, what sort of customer journey do you take people on?
Yeah, so leads are a multitude of different areas. So the first and foremost is our website, right? So people are coming in through our website. Some people are attending webinars and coming through. We are starting to get some what we call viral network effect happening, certainly in the States. So with some of the Omnis portfolios going into towns where they're actually seeing that we're addressing some odor problems or industry issues, other cities are starting to pick up on that as well. So that's actually a really good sign for us. In the water space, we made an ASX announcement recently on Water Corp, and then other utilities in Australia have actually reached out on the back of that to us to say, hey, listen, come and have a conversation with us, which has been very, very good.
You mentioned Water Corp, and I understand it's a proof of concept piece of work being done there. What's the time frame on delivery of that?
Look, we're expecting to bring that POC to full completion probably in the Q3 next year, start of Q4. But we're going through a strong validation. The technology we know works. This is more around how the project goes in, how we interact with the customer, how the customer engages with the data set, and what those validation points are. As I said, the actual technical part was actually developed with University of Queensland. So we know that it's sound technology.
And it must be a crowded space. How competitive is it? And what's your competitive advantage?
Interestingly enough, it's not a crowded space. So within the Suex, so that was the sewage part, there is no single competitor on the planet at the moment. So that is very good for us. It's our opportunity to move forward and implement our strategy. We're seeing some emerging competitors come through in the optimizer part, but no one is using artificial intelligence and deterministic modeling. And so our advantage there is being able to build on that and the capabilities that brings. In Omnis, because we now have vibration, noise, odor, air quality, and water quality, nobody has that amount of environmental parameters coming into a predictive modeling platform. Aviation is different. Aviation does have competitors out there, but we are 60% market share globally, and we're certainly seen as the market leader in that place.
And in terms of how you get paid, and it may differ from product to product, but you get paid on installation and then a SaaS style monthly recurring or yearly recurring fee. And once you're embedded and it's pretty hard to shake.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's exactly that. We get a paid one-time fee for implementation, and then there's an annual subscription moving forward. Some customers we have for more than 20 years. We've been in Port Hedland for over 10 years. So yeah, that's certainly, long-standing relationships.
Great, Jason. That's all we have time for today. A great presentation, and we wish you all the best with your future success.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Now I'd like to introduce you to Asset Owl, stock code AO1, with a market cap of just over $3 million. Asset Owl is an innovative technology company with an enterprise software application providing real estate owners with one trusted platform for managing their properties remotely. Joining us is Geoff Goldsmith, CEO. Geoff, over to you.
David, thanks for those kind words, and thanks for your time. It's good to be here. Look, we've only got a very short time, so there's 5 areas I'd briefly like to cover. If we could go to the next slide. First of all, I'll give you a quick background of the Australian residential market, and more importantly, we'll focus in on the role that inspections play within that market. We'll then move to Percy, give you a quick introduction to our platform and articulate why we think we're the platform that will disrupt the market. We'll then talk about the considerable progress that the team have made over the course of 2021, over the last six to 8 months. We'll then articulate what our ambition is for Asset Owl in 2022, and then we'll round out by a quick summary of what I think are the investment highlights for the company. Next slide, please. So a quick background of the Australian residential market. It is a big market. There's over 2.5 million rentals. So not only is it a big market, it's important to the economy. And for households, real estate are often the central part of their wealth creation strategy. So property inspections are important because they support owners and households in delivering that strategy. And they support it because they're the mechanism through which property owners monitor the condition of their properties. For those who don't know or haven't rented for a while, there are basically 3 types of inspections. There's entry inspections or property condition reports, which basically document the property's condition at the start of a tenancy. You then have a series of what we call routine inspections, which monitor from time to time the condition of the property, how the tenants are going, and identify any maintenance issues. And then at the end of the tenancy, you have a final bond inspection where they compare the condition of the property with that at the start and determine whether the tenants are able to get their bond back or not. So they're very important, but they're very time-consuming, and inspections are often the source of much friction between the various stakeholders in the tenancy. Next slide, please. We believe that the legacy inspection tools have really, failed to provide the adequate support that the industry requires. And that's across all stakeholder groups. So there are 4 main stakeholders in the tenancy cycle. Each of them got their own particular individual problems and challenges. If we start with property managers, a very high stress role, they're very time poor, and often property managers are caught in the middle of a lot of conflict between owners and tenants. And they also have to manage the agency principles. Very often, a worst case, throughout a tenancy, they're the ones that are going to court trying to resolve disputes over bonds. Agency principals, they're also an important stakeholder. They're obviously worried about business development. They want to maintain their rent roll. That's an important part of their business. And in an ideal world, they'd seek to grow that rent roll. But in addition to that, as small businesses throughout the economy are facing, they have employee and personnel challenges. They want to keep their good staff. It's a stressful role that their property managers are in. And so they want to provide the sort of level of support needed to keep their good staff. Property owners, we've talked about that briefly. It's a very important part of their wealth creation strategies. And whilst it's often the single biggest investment that a household will make, they feel very disempowered because they don't have the opportunity to monitor the condition of their property or their investment on a day-to-day basis. So there's a lot of anxiety around their investment, especially if they can't see their property firsthand. And that, of course, percolates through and adds to the challenge of the tenancy arrangement. And finally, we have, of course, last but no means least, the tenants. Moving house can be very stressful. The inspection regime is quite onerous. In West Australia, they have to go through 4 routine inspections per year. And of course, at the end of the tenancy, they're worried about whether they're going to get their bond back. And for some people, $1,000, $2,000 bond, that's a very important part of making ends meet. Next slide, please. So what does Percy do? Our property platform, or our inspection platform, basically creates a photocentric view and comprehensive inspection report. It streamlines all three inspections: entry, routine, and exits. It helps streamline the tenant process because they can digitally sign off entry reports. And as a tool, our platform is available across the full spectrum of devices, whether it's desktop, laptop, or phones, whether it's Android or iOS. And more importantly, what our platform delivers is high quality reports, which we believe will reduce the likelihood of disputes, and it delivers a lot of productivity benefits. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Next slide, please. So we've talked about what Percy delivers. The next question, the next obvious question is, how does it deliver that? Well, we have a technology focus that we believe sets us apart from our competitors. There's a wide range of features that our platform has that we think delivers value. 4 of the key ones are on the slide in front. The first one is panoramic photos. We are the only inspection tool that integrates with panoramic 360-degree cameras. That delivers a lot of productivity benefits for the owners, and we'll elaborate on that. And also reduces the likelihood of disputes and improves the quality of the report. The second key feature is data syncing. So we have our platform is live syncing. That delivers 2 key benefits for stakeholders. First of all, it enhances the security of the data, less likelihood of losing data in the field. And secondly, it enables a number of people to work on a property inspection simultaneously. So that does save time. And of course, in some properties, it's also a security benefit because you can, from a safety point of view, have more than one property manager doing the report. Exit inspections. I just want to quickly touch on that. This year, we've learned a lot about entry inspections. We've been very surprised to find that whilst some of our customers have signed up to other inspection tools, when it comes to exit inspections, they're still printing out the old entry report, taking it into the property and conducting entry inspections by hand and paper. It just highlights the lack of support that previous inspection tools have provided. And for us, it's an opportunity, most importantly, an opportunity to help our customers and help them improve their business. And finally, there's data migration. That's a key feature that we've just rounded out. One of the challenges, historical challenges for property agencies is what to do with their old paper-based reports. We have a capability to bring that onto our platform, so it's digitised and kept and stored securely on our platform. Next slide. So let's talk about 2021. Look, that's been a very busy year, and we believe we've achieved a lot. If I was to summarise our successes, I'd say they fall in 3 broad areas. First of all, we've delivered value for our customers. Secondly, we've seen an accelerating uptake of our product, which is very exciting. And thirdly, our development team have delivered upon a number of product milestones. And I'll quickly step you through each of those in a bit more detail. Next slide. So as you can gather, we believe our platform delivers productivity across the range or across the cycle of the tenancy, but we often focus on the productivity benefits at the start of an inspection platform. So if you look at the old system, property managers will take over 1,000 photos. Using our 3D camera, that comes down to 200 photos. So that's a saving of approximately 2 hours per inspection. For a mid-sized agency that does, say, 400 inspections, that's 800 hours saved. That's a lot of productivity benefit. And what's not brought out by the slide is, as you can perhaps imagine, the agency themselves are the ones that are capturing the lion's share of that productivity benefit. Next slide, please. With respect to rollout, the second quarter of the calendar year, around April, we had 2 customers. That's now grown to 35 over the course of 7 to 8 months. If you look at just WA, which has been our prime focus this year, we have 33 customers on our platform. They collectively are responsible for about 12,500 properties. That represents approximately 8% of the market. So we're very happy with the progress that we've made. We're now starting to get a better feel for the profile of our customers, and it is a very wide range and diverse bunch. So we have property agents on our platform in the city, in the regions, small agencies, large agencies, franchise agencies, and sole traders. So we've learned a lot from them. It's a good mix, and we've been very excited by our traction. Next slide, please. So obviously we've learned a lot throughout the year, and we've been very careful and diligent in applying some of those lessons learned into our development pipeline. As you can see, there's been a very busy year for us. We've entered Victoria, we've launched exit features, we've worked closely with independent inspection agencies, and importantly at the moment we're developing or upgrading our sync protocol. We're expanding the capacity of our infrastructure, and that will all set us up for a very exciting 2022. Next slide, please. So what's on our agenda for 2022? Front and centre first half of next year, we'll be continuing our East Coast rollout. So in the next 6 months, we are targeting entry into Queensland and New South Wales, two of the largest markets in the country. The second half of the year, we'll look to build on that. We'll look to leverage the platform and the traction that we have in the marketplace to source new revenue streams. One example of that is the self-managed market, self-managed real estate market. We're quite excited about that prospect, and it's something we're going to look into focus on more heavily next year. And in the longer term, there is a path for long-term growth. Some of our competitors have shown that Australian inspection companies or inspection platform companies are able to cut it overseas, and that's something we'll be looking at closely next year. We also believe that we have a rich source of data, and we can start interrogating that data to provide insights for our customers. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, there are 5 key traits or key highlights to us as an investment proposition. We are supporting a large, important part of the economy. We are providing a service that is non-discretionary. The market is fragmented. It's a fragmented customer base. We believe it's right for disruption. We have the product. We have the technology focus. We have a runway. And we believe that with our current share price and the accelerated uptake, that we have a clear value proposition for investors. So, David, that's me. Over to you for questions. Hopefully, we've left enough time.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Geoff. A couple of questions have come through, but before we get to that, just a bit of background. Are you and your team former real estate people or in the industry, or are you technology people that have seen a problem?
That's a really good question. So, our founder, Giuseppe, our Chief Technology Officer, very much technology background, ex-Google, felt that Google, he could do a better job than what Google was doing in a lot of areas, so he left Google and set up his own company. But he's very passionate about solving problems, and that's technical background is very useful there. He's also done his property management qualification. But we also have on our board our chairman, who's got a real estate background. His family business used to own Roy Weston, one of the bigger franchises in WA. We have Geoff Baldwin, who is an industry veteran. So I like to see our company as technology-led, but very much a fusion of technology and property experience and background.
And how long was the gestation period to get to that product launch? How extensive, I suppose, was the proof of concept stage and to make sure you were delivering a product that the market wanted?
So Giuseppe's original focus was on supporting, believe it or not, retail industry. So Bunnings, Wesfarmers, Coles, Woolworths. 2019 pivoted into this space, especially with connections with Geoff Baldwin and Simon. So they spent 2019 rounding out the product. 2020, the plan was to launch it and hit the market hard. COVID came along, took the time to integrate the product with Trust Tools, which is a very important piece of work, but also develop a few COVID-related features, which I haven't talked about, but they're quite exciting and they're going to remain relevant. So last year was about really, I suppose, shoring up the product and the features and the functionality. This year has been about rolling out in WA, getting that initial market feedback, which is very valuable and very important and sets us up for next year, which is the rollout and the scale up.
How competitive is this space? And I know there are probably people out there who do bits of what you do, not the complete package. But how competitive is it? And what's your competitive edge that sees you lead over competitors?
Yeah, so there's arguably 4 or 5 main competitors. I think one of our main edge is obviously our technology focus and our technology background. So that panoramic cameras, no one else has got. Data seeking, no one else has got. So I suppose we're here to disrupt the market. We think there's a need. We think that the market hasn't been well served. And, we've got those market-leading features. I liken the panoramic camera to electric vehicles. Everyone knows that the car industry is moving there, and in 10 years' time, everyone will have an electronic car. It's just a matter of when. It's the same with 3D cameras, 3D photos. It really is a game changer, but we're there first. We're the only one there, and we think it's that technology edge that will enable us to succeed and grab considerable market share.
And you've got a number of customers in trial. What's the trial period, and how does the conversion rate tend to work?
Yeah, so that's something that we're obviously working on at the moment. A typical trial period, they'll sign up for a month, but if they need longer. Having said that, we've had a lot of referrals from inspection agencies. We give them 3 months, and of course we're in the Christmas time, so we're giving them 2 months. So the short answer is as we're rolling out this year, we've been learning and we've been taking our time. Next year, one of my key focuses is shortening that transition period. But we haven't lost any of our customers, so that's good. But obviously, there's a lot of work ahead of us too.
As you say, a fragmented market, a big market. The real estate market in Australia is substantial and growing. A fragmented market, leading on technology, but with that strong real estate background. Geoff, we wish you all the best. Looks like it's going to be a very interesting 2022. Exciting times ahead. Thanks for your time.
Thanks a lot, David. Good to see you.
Thank you. Next, we have Expon Technologies, which is currently undertaking an IPO on the ASX. Xpon is a technology company for the next generation of marketing and customer experience. Presenting will be Matt Forman, founder and group managing director. Now, I would remind you, if you do want to look at participating in this IPO, make contact with Richard Rouse at Sequoia as quick as you can.
Awesome. Matt. Thank you, David. Really excited to share the Xpon story with everyone. If we just go to the next slide. But before I do, just an important disclaimer. So as you mentioned, David, we're in the process of an IPO. The retail offer is open at the moment. If anyone does want to apply for shares, it's important that you understand the risks, and you can visit expon.ai/investors to download and read the prospectus and apply for shares under the offer. Next slide, please. So before I talk a little bit about what Xpon does, I think it's important to understand the themes that are really driving demand for our solutions and underpinning our rapid growth. I think first of all is this a topic of data privacy, and everyone as consumers knows that we're a lot more aware these days of how our data is being used online. And I guess that consumer awareness around data privacy is also being matched by the regulators as well. And the second point there, which links very closely to the first point, is this issue around third-party cookies being phased out. So what third-party cookies are they're a little piece of technology, they're a text file actually, that sits on your computer, and that what allows websites and internet companies to track what you do online. So for example, if you've ever been on Facebook, you've clicked on an ad, you've gone off Facebook to a website, but Facebook still understands what products you've looked at and what pages you looked at. That's third-party cookies that are enabling that. And with the phasing out of third-party cookies because of the privacy concerns, it creates a really big problem for companies like Facebook and Google because they're losing access to that data. It also presents a big problem for our customers who are big advertisers who've traditionally relied on that data to target their advertising to. So there is a solution for that, and that's part of what Xpon provides, and that's really enabling companies to use what's called first-party data. So first-party data is data that a company owns on its customers and consumers, and that could come from a variety of sources, might come from their CRM or their point of sale. It might be their e-commerce website. So being able to harness that first party data and use it in a really privacy compliant and anonymized way solves a big problem for our customers, but also solves a really strategic problem for big internet companies like Google and Facebook, who we're both partnered with, and I'll touch on that shortly. And then that third theme that's really driving a lot of growth is this huge and rapid shift to the cloud. And depending on which vendor you listen to, they say it's somewhere between 6 to 8% complete, this shift to the cloud. So there's still a very, very long runway of growth still to go there. So the convergence of those three trends has created a lot of disruption. It's also creating great opportunity. And according to Frost & Sullivan, the total addressable market for what Xpon does is somewhere in the vicinity of $200 billion. And that's just in Australia and Europe alone. So we just go to the next slide. So what it is that Xpon actually does. So a typical problem for our customer is they really need to accelerate their digital modernization to sort of combat those market dynamic shifts that I just spoke about, but also to make sure they're meeting consumers' expectations. And that's expectations not just around privacy, but also around a really great digital experience as well. You know, we've seen COVID really accelerate the adoption of e-commerce and the way that consumers interact online with brands. And the solution that Expon offers is what we call the Expon Marketing and Customer Technologies Stack. So we incrementally deploy that to our customers. We don't go in and try and sell the whole stack. And you'll see on the screen there that diagram on the right-hand side, those green boxes, and they're the components of the stack. And the way I like to think about them is they're little Lego blocks that you click together. And as you start to build the Lego blocks and piece them all together, you get a much more sophisticated and much more effective solution that enables our customers to really grow exponentially in this really modern world. So the way that we sort of work with customers, we take a land and expand approach. The first thing we do with the customer typically is we'll do what we call a maturity assessment. So that involves doing an audit of their data, their technology systems, what their strategic objectives are, and building out a roadmap of how they get from where they are today to where they need to be in the future. The next phase is where we start to expand, and that's where we start to lay the elements of the technology stack. So that would include laying the cloud infrastructure foundations. It would include making sure that all their marketing, customer analytics is set up correctly. They're collecting all the data that they need to collect. They've got all the permissions and privacy elements in place. Another really important element of this is making sure our customers own the data that's generated from their advertising. We have a great partnership with Google, and I'll talk to that shortly. So we sell the Google marketing platform, and that's an advertising or what they call an ad tech platform. And that ad tech platform is technology that companies use to buy ads on the internet. So as part of our relationship with our customers, we ensure that all of the data that's generated from that, excuse me, is owned by our customers. And then they're building a data asset. And as they start to integrate that data asset with other sources of data in their organization, the exponential value of that continues to increase. And then the final thing we do is help our customers with their digital applications and digital products, and making sure they're delivering those really great privacy compliant and rich customer experiences online. So the centerpiece to that stack is what we call our wondrous customer data platform. So a customer data platform, it enables an organization to create a centralized single view of their customer. So on average, an organization has up to 20 different sources of data on their customer, and they're very rarely connected. And that's what a customer data platform does. It connects all those siloed sources of data. It enables a process of what's called identity resolution, which enables us to connect all those different sources of information to create a single view of the customer. And once that data is in place, that's when the machine learning and the AI can do what it does best and create really sophisticated and powerful segmentation. Some of our machine learning models are really focused around predictive analytics. So that helps our customers understand, which groups of their customers are more likely to churn, are more likely to purchase, what their predicted lifetime value might be. So all those machine learning models create these different groups, or we call them smart audiences. Then our customers can synchronize those groups of consumers into the advertising platforms like Google and Facebook in a very anonymized and privacy complicit way, that then enables them to target advertising to them, which makes their advertising a lot more effective, and it helps them comply with obviously some of these issues with privacy and the issue of third-party cookies going away. And then finally, the digital experience layer, and that's something I'm very excited about with the future. I think Mark Zuckerberg's done us a great favor with rebranding Facebook to Metaverse recently as well. And that's the immersive or the XR experience. And I think over time, we're going to see that rapidly increase the adoption of that. So we have a platform, it's called Holoscribe. It enables our customers to build these really rich, immersive XR experiences and then publish them out into any channel that will support that format. So that could be things like VR headsets. It can actually be in a browser or on a mobile, and it can be into social platforms that support 360 content. So that's platforms like Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube, for example. But two of the really main reasons our customers use this platform is it's exceptionally powerful at capturing attention. So on average, a user or a consumer would spend 9.5 minutes inside a Holoscribe experience. And the second reason they use it is because it's very effective at capturing first-party data in a very privacy compliant way. And when that data is synchronized back to our Wondrous customer data platform, they then have another powerful source of data that they can use and to activate advertising, but also for the machine learning to actually use to inform it for its predictions. If we just go to the next slide, please. So how we're structured, our Expon Technologies group, which is the company that we're listing on the ASX shortly, that's our corporate entity. We have two essentially business units. We have Expon Technologies. So we have a sales and operations hub here in Australia. We've actually got offices in Brisbane and Sydney. We've also got a team in London that services the UK and Europe. And we have an engineering hub in Hanoi and Vietnam. That's a really important part of our model, the Vietnam engineering hub, because there's exceptional talent in Vietnam, and it's quite cost effective. And like every technology company on the planet, we're competing pretty aggressively for talent these days. So that does help us and help provide a competitive advantage to us. And then our Expon Platforms business unit is the business unit that's responsible for the development and commercialization of our two proprietary platforms, Wondrous and Holoscribe. Next slide, please. So we work with a lot of great customers. We've got over 190 customers globally. We're focused on the corporate and enterprise market. So you can see a selection of some of those brands that we work with. So financial services is a key vertical for us. You can see there Sunsuper, OFX, UE, and BCIC, which is the British Caribbean insurance company. Some of our financial services customers, retail and travel is another great vertical for us. And you can see some of our customers there, Super Retail Group, Webjet, Flight Centre, Domino's. We also work in media and entertainment. We've got some great customers there. Non-profits use our Holoscribe platform. They get a great result by using extended reality to create really rich stories to tell the narrative of their causes. And education is also a great sector for us as well. Maybe to next slide, please. So I just wanted to quickly talk to the relationship that we have with Google and Facebook. They're important to our business. So we're partnered with Google across 3 different areas of the Google business. So there's the Google Cloud business, which is the Google Cloud platform, the Google Marketing platform, which is their advertising technology, and then the Google Ads business, which is obviously where Google sell advertising online. So we have quite a unique relationship with Google there, in that we're partnered with all 3 areas of the business. So that benefits us because it allows Google to take us into customers. So they're a great source of distribution for us. It benefits our customers because Google can bring in a specialist like us with very targeted solutions to help their customers solve problems. And it obviously benefits Google as well because it helps Google make more money and it helps Google solve problems for their customers. There's a very powerful impact to our business model from this relationship, because every time our customers spend money on advertising through the Google platform, we generate what's called a usage fee. And anytime they're spending money on cloud consumption through Google Cloud, we generate an earning on a usage fee as well. So those usage fees are really sort of a powerful sort of flywheel effect on our business model, because the more effective that we are, the more the customers spend. Obviously, Google make more money, so they're happy, but our usage fees continue to increase, and they're at 100% gross margin to us. We also have a partnership with Facebook. It's a little bit more nascent than the Google relationship, but still quite important to us as well. Next slide, please. So I've spoken through how we land a customer and how we expand a customer, how we actually make money. So two types of revenue, recurring and non-recurring. 88% of our revenue is recurring, so we've got a very strong annuity revenue stream. The three recurring revenue lines that we have are software licenses. So typically we sell an annual software license. And something that we do a little bit differently is we'll attach a managed service subscription to that software license. And what that does is it enables our team to not only ensure that our customers are getting the maximum success from the software, but it means they stay close to the customer, and it really does help with our expand strategy and help us to cross-sell and upsell and continue to add value to our customer. And then that third area is the usage fees that I just mentioned. So those three recurring revenue lines, as I said, make up 88% of our revenue. And then the non-recurring, which is professional services and onboarding and implementation fees for the software. A large part of the reason we are IPOing is to really accelerate the growth of the business. There's sort of 5 core pillars to our growth. The first one is to strengthen the existing solutions that we have, and that may include strategic acquisitions if we find the right fit. Sort of criteria we're looking at with acquisitions is, they have corporate and enterprise customers on recurring revenue contracts, they have great talent, and we see the opportunity to cross-sell and upsell the Xpon stack and expand the gross margin from those customers as well. And we did a little tuck-in acquisition in June of this year. It was a company called Internetrics. And I've got some data which I'll talk to shortly that sort of demonstrates how we're able to integrate these acquisitions quite quickly and immediately start to expand the margin and the average revenue per customer once they're part of the Xpon stack. That second pillar to our growth is continuing our expand strategy and cross-sell and upsell. A large part of the use of funds from the IPO, over 50%, is really being driven to just supercharge our organic growth. So that's a large part of that's expanding our sales and marketing capacity. So sales teams, marketing teams, advertising, promotions, events, as COVID allows us to get back to face-to-face events as well. We'll continue to expand our channel relationships with these global vendors like Google and Facebook. And we'll continue to build out the ecosystem around our wondrous customer data platform. That really has 2 sides to it. There's building out an open API ecosystem so our customers and developers inside their organizations can build on top of our platform and use the data that's generated from our platform for other use cases inside their organization. And then externally, it's about distribution. So it's integrating our platform into the online SaaS marketplaces. So a lot of the big vendors like Google and Salesforce and Microsoft have these online SaaS marketplaces where their customers can buy software online. And so we'll be putting Wondrous into those marketplaces over time. Go to the next slide, please. Next one again, thanks. So I just want to quickly just talk to the growth that we've had. So we've experienced some very rapid growth in our annualized recurring revenue. You can see in FY21, we grew 192% organically. When we tucked that acquisition in, it went to 253%. So we exited the year at 9.2 million in ARR. For the first quarter of this year, we added another 1.8 million. So we've exited September at 11 million in ARR. Next slide, please. So not only are we growing really fast, but we've got some really strong unit economics that underpin that growth. We very rarely churn customers. Our retention rate's 99.6%. Not only do we keep our customers, but we continue to grow them over time. Our revenue retention rate's 119%. The lifetime value per customer is 706,000. It costs us 28,000 to acquire a customer. So that LTV to CAC ratio is 25 times. And our CAC payback period 6 months. So the total lifetime value across our entire database customer base is shy of 137 million, and that's as at 30th September. Next slide, please. Just a very quick update in the first quarter of this year. So we did 3 million in revenue for Q1 FY22. Our gross margin was 62%. And just to sort of illustrate that acquisition story, when we pro-formed in the Internetrics acquisition that we did in June, Our gross margin was 52% because they were quite low margin business. And in that first quarter, since we've acquired them and integrated them, we've got our margin back up to 62%. So 10 percentage point increase there. Next slide, please. Next one. We've got a fantastic team. Our chair's a gentleman called Phil Harris. So Phil's got a great background in financial services. He's the former head of credit cards at CBA. He's also on the board of Credit Corp, ASX listed 200. And Tim Abbott's our third director. So Tim was the former CEO of SAP in Australia, also Oracle in Australia. He's also on the board of ReadyTech, which is an ASX listed technology company. And then we've got a really, really good executive team. I won't go through all the names because of time, so we might just go to the next slide, thanks. Next one again. So just very quickly about the structure of the IPO. So I think the key points here is we're raising between 10 and 12.5 million at an enterprise value of 48 million. After the IPO, more than half the company is still going to be owned by the directors and senior management. All that will be locked up in either mandatory or voluntary 24-month escrow. So you've got a lot of skin in the game from the founding team and the senior executive team. And like I mentioned, we'll be raising between 10 and 12.5 at 20 cents a share. So we go to the next slide, please. So just quickly on the timetable, the offer's open at the moment. The offer is scheduled to close on the 7th of December. However, we've had very, very positive demand, so it's likely it's going to close early. So if anyone is interested in applying for shares, I would encourage you to go to the website that you see on the screen there, expon.ai/investors, and download and read the prospectus. And I would encourage you to probably do that before Monday. And I think I'll leave it there because I've taken up a lot of time, but thank you.
Thanks, Matt. A great presentation. And look, as an IPO, you do have very clear restrictions and requirements when it comes to disclosing the business and its facts. So did need to go a little bit longer than a listed company would to make sure that those were disclosed correctly. We don't have time for questions, unfortunately, but there are a couple of questions in the Q&A section. So I would ask if you can go and deal with those questions directly. But Matt, a great presentation and clearly a company to watch, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Cheers.
Last but no means least, but by no means least, we have Stealth Global Holdings, ASX code SGI, with a market cap of $12.5 million. Stealth Group is a broadline business to business and business to consumer distributor of industrial, maintenance, repair, operating MRO, safety workplace supplies, and other related products and services. Presenting is Mike Arnold, Group Managing Director. Mike, over to you.
Morning, David. Thank you for having me on. And a bit of a mouthful there in terms of the amount of products that we sell, but we'll take you through that. If you can move to the next slide, please. The short of it is in a 2-minute video explaining our organisation, and we'd like to sort of present that to you now, and then I'll come back online and take you through the rest of the organisation.
Founded in 2014, Stealth Global Holdings is an Australian publicly listed multinational distribution group. Our strategy is to establish a large-scale, diversified, market-leading industrial MRO supplies organisation. We operate in the geographic locations of Australia, the United Kingdom, Africa and Asia. Since listing on the Australian Securities Exchange in October 2018, Stealth has completed 5 acquisitions and established a joint venture with Bisley Workwear in the United Kingdom. Our portfolio of businesses are leading brands with long operating histories in their markets. We hold an advantage position with our wide-range product offering, high-touch solutions model, store network, supply chain infrastructure, robust e-commerce channels, and deep customer and supplier relationships. Our extensive branch, store, and operational footprint is well positioned with stock and infrastructure to better serve our customers' needs across many regions. Our portfolio of market-leading brands provides access to over 1 million products. With around 400,000 in-stock items across our network, we have a product for every job. We provide supplies and solutions for every industry. Customers can access our products anytime, anywhere through our sales team, in-store, on-site, online, click and collect, and delivery options. Each business within the group has its own distinct culture aligned to the overall vision, which has greatly contributed to our success. We have a clear growth strategy supported by a strong team of people with a proven track record. Our success is underpinned by our core values. We are committed to building a thriving business for the future. We welcome all employees, customers and stakeholders to contribute and participate in our growth as a combined group. Find out more by visiting stealthgi.com.
Thank you. If we can make next slide. So obviously that saves 20 minutes of presenting our organisation, but we listed in 2018 in October. The growth that you've seen and I'm about to take you through has been our journey for the last 3 years. Ultimately, our strategy is to build Australia's leading distribution group of industrial MRO suppliers, holding a market advantage position. Importantly, to support that, and we talk about value proposition or strengths, it's really about ensuring that we have an extensive supply chain infrastructure, which we do. A broad line product range is around about 1 million products, as was suggested earlier. But importantly, our positioning is around about being the partner of choice, not only for suppliers, but customers and employees and other key stakeholders. And part of our network growth also involves independent members who own their own stores, but require our business for collective buying scale, but also ourselves. Underpinning all that, obviously, is ensuring in this day and age really robust e-commerce platforms, which we've spent approximately $1.2 million over the last 12 months in evolving that strategy. Next slide, please. We have a really good board structure. So Chris Warden is the chairman and the former West Australian executive for Seven Group Holdings. John Gropoli is the former managing partner of Norton Rose Legal and chairman of Automotive Holdings Group, or former. Simon Poitevin is extremely strong in the capital markets and former captain of the Wallabies, has joined our board recently. And those three guys really support me in terms of the growth of the organisation quite regularly. Our market cap today is approximately $12.5 million. We produced an EBITDA of $4.5 million on a revenue base of $70 million at June 30. So at a 4 times multiple, we believe that we're undervalued. And I'll explain the couple of spikes in our share price as we go through the slide deck. Next slide, please. As we've explained, our M&A track record of 5 acquisitions and 1 joint venture with Bisley Workwear has actually put a really good platform behind our organisation, where our annual run rate today is $90 million. We recently completed the acquisition of Skipper Transport Parts, which is the former Coventry's automotive business with a long history. We acquired the regional assets in Port Hedland, Karratha, Albany and Esperance in Western Australia. Prior to that, they had a national platform which they started to reduce, and we've grabbed hold of that business and we're onboarding that as we speak. Next slide, please. Just a bit of a look inside our organisation to, I guess, from a picture point of view, get a really good view of what we do, both in store and on site, but also online. The Heatley's business has operated for approximately 32 years. The C&L business that we acquired has been operating more than 50 years. The Skipper Transport Parts business, a similar time frame. So what we've done is acquired organisations with long trading history and leaders in their own particular markets. Next slide, thank you. One of the areas that we've invested in and we're evolving, and this is more about positioning ourselves to meet the needs of customers, is an on-site solutions model. So it's essentially taking our capabilities from our own stores and our own distribution centres and moving that onto a customer site, whether that be in a fixed location or a temporary location. So a temporary location could be the building roads, building infrastructure, working out in remote locations. We can put inventory solutions on site that has full technologies capability that is aligned back to not only our ERP system, but also with our customers. So what that does, it gives full visibility of the supply chain and replenishment and control of inventory for the customer and also ourselves. It also allows us to keep a low cost operating model by not continuing to increase the size of distribution centres to hold inventory, whereby we, as an everyday commodity, can place those items for convenience and cost down for the customer at their premises. Next slide, please. Just a bit of an overview of our financials in the last 12 months. Our Australian revenue has grown by 17% to 66 odd million, and that is prior to the acquisition of Skipper Transport Parts and only includes 7 months of contribution from the C&L Tool Centre acquisition that we completed in December of 20. Our UK revenue domestically has increased by 80%. And whilst that's at $2 million, that market has been largely in lockdown for a period of time. I'll talk about the growth in that market very shortly, but ultimately our numbers have improved right across the board. So we've increased, as you can see, over a 3-year period quite significantly in our revenue from a group level. Our sales have increased by more than $20 million in Australia. But what's pleasing with that is our scale that I showed earlier of bringing those businesses together has improved our gross profit contribution. We're sitting about 29% at the moment. That's up 9% of last year or the year before, from 26.6. When the business listed, we had a gross profit contribution of 18.5%. So we've basically increased that by 50% in the last 3 years. Next slide, please. From the strategic and operational perspective, in the last 12 months, we've acquired 6 new stores with that and 17 new locations. We've onboarded 600,000 new products in our range, 62 people, 2,500 new customers and 1,400 new suppliers. And at the same time, we've also launched 4 and acquired 2 online presences. Over a period on the right-hand side of the slide, you can see the size of the growth that, again, we've achieved in the last 3 years. Our strategy is very simple. It's a build and buy strategy across our organisations. Next slide, please. The digital transformation has been quite significant and an important part of our business. So online as well as in-store and on-site is ultimately how we connect better with the customer and make them sticky. The investment that we've put into our subsidiary brands has meant now that the sales in C&L Tool Centre, for example, are 25% of total revenue. Heatley sales, which has really been focused on a business-to-business platform, has also now have B2C capabilities. And the benefits of that recently are the acquisition of new contract customers, which is the first for that business and size, whereby we put automation in place and locked in for long-term arrangements. We've launched online platform in the retail sector in the UK, and that's growing 50% month on month, as well as put a new platform in place for members that we have operating within the ISG group on the East Coast of Australia. And that's give them a new portal and access to commercial information, price points and catalogues that becomes important for them to use to generate customer sales and drive them to their store. So in summing that up, we have business-to-business capability, and also we have the retail element of online shopping. Next slide, please. Whilst online is obviously very important and meets some consumers' requirements, we also promote through catalogues and monthly newsletters, as well as a whole range of other specials that we put out across our brands. Ultimately, this is about making sure that our customers are top of mind, books on their desk, and it suits still a number of consumers in terms of how they want to acquire products from our business. Next slide, please. Our strategy over the next 3 years is continuing to centre around a build and buy strategy. So we're looking to increase our scale, increase our competitiveness, and grow our market share. So building a large business that has preferred supplier arrangements as well as customer arrangements is critical. The deeper supply arrangements is around getting our preferred suppliers and making sure that we can add value to them, but also making sure that ranging and pricing, and as a channel of the market, we can be consistent with how we provide our products across the portfolio. 5 different companies operating to meet customer needs is one element, but the buying consolidation power and the efficiency within the supply chain needs to operate separate to that. Our organisation, as you can see, when we provide online, in-store, on-site solutions, is about providing a more simplistic way or convenient way in how we connect with our customers. So greater customer value and better experiences, particularly in this market, is about providing them with multiple buying options. Our business has really worked hard to configure itself to meet the evolving needs of the consumer and the shift, I guess, because of COVID over the last 18 months in the market, and people just want simplicity. So we've created a platform now that allows for that. Underpinning everything is ensuring that we provide satisfactory return to shareholders. So our shareholders have been on a pathway of revenue growth, building scale, getting ourselves set for the next phase. As we head to $100 million turnover, we feel that in 2022 and for the 3-year period thereafter, our focus is now on profitability, a lean model, an EBITDA of north than 8%. We do have some peer groups that we follow offshore international markets that are generating between 12 and 14% EBITDA. And to do that, we need to obviously implement those elements that you can see within this strategy slide. Next slide, please. Lastly, I guess, from an investment perspective, over the last 12 months, we've taken an industry leading position in Western Australia in terms of the range and depth of service capability within Western Australia market, which is where we have traditionally generated most of our revenue streams. And what I mean by that is we can provide, as one supplier, a comprehensive range of product for multiple industry sectors and multiple customer types in business, in trade, and in retail. We're number 2 in size now to our closest competitor in the West Australian market, but clearly, whilst we've created some dominance there, we run a national business and we're growing on a national level. So you could see earlier in those slides the amount of locations we now have. So growing our distribution network becomes key, and driving customers to our stores becomes key. Our addressable market is now sitting at about $40 billion based on our own analysis, and that's in not only the industrial MRO sector, but wholesale trade, as well as building and construction supplies that are available to that. So it's a very fragmented market. It's very favourable. We have some great economic and industry investment that is put into infrastructure and resources sector, as well as engineering and manufacturing, and those markets are actually high growth areas for us. The benefits of the acquisitions that we've made haven't been fully yet realised. So the synergies that we've identified across those 2 businesses are in excess of $20 million from a revenue point of view. And we should see that we will be able to attain a lower cost to serve as a percentage of our revenue. That's where we believe that our EBITDA will increase. The rise of our e-commerce platforms in terms of growing sales on that, it's up 150% on our 2020 numbers already on an annual run rate. We see that will continue to increase on an annual basis, at least by 100% year on year. A new customer contracts, which we mentioned, provides a vertically integrated model, which is a first for the organisation in the Australian market. And in doing that, that means that we will increase not only our sales from a contractual point of view, but we maintain the traditions of our business, which is 95% of our customers are repeat sales. And repeat sales is either ongoing in store, or it's sales reps that are on the road, or it is through email, online, and a number of other platforms. And lastly, I guess, and most importantly, we see our sales and earning profile to continue to increase. So on $70 million last year, with an annual run rate of $90 million now, is the 30% increase. We see that that's absolutely aligned with our 3-year strategy, and will continue to grow quite significantly, where 3 years ago we listed just before that at 22 odd million in revenue, and getting 90 million in 3 years has obviously been an enormous effort that we're proud of, and we're going to continue to grow in. Okay, David, that's it. I'll hand it over to you. Thank you.
Mike, a great presentation, and a substantial business playing in some key markets. Have you, clearly the resources sector is a key market, and there's a lot of leverage to that sector, and you clearly dominate in delivering into those markets. But you touched on manufacturing and other sectors. How big is the opportunity in those sectors to grow into a market and a market share there?
The market share growth is really from a national point of view. We're strong in very strong in Western Australia, as I mentioned, and Queensland is a new market for us. It was about getting our own operational presence on the East Coast and Queensland is a very similar market in terms of what Western Australia does. So we felt that the model that works here can work there. Clearly, we've been cautious about New South Wales and Victoria in terms of the COVID lockdowns and their restrictions. And now that market opens up, we see that there'll be growth in most of those markets, not just in manufacturing, but also in a whole range of areas. I guess our mandate has been pretty simplistic, is to provide an everyday product to every workplace, but also for the general consumer is really a real alternative that somebody can walk into our organisation and buy any type of product. And there's no one company of our type now in Australia. So we have a number of different peers and competitors in each market, but not one that can offer everything to every industry.
M&A has clearly played a role in the growth of the business, and you've been able to bed down some substantial opportunities. I understand you're moving now, the foundation's built, but do you still keep an eye on M&A opportunities? And if so, what's the perfect fit?
We've been really deliberate and consistent in acquisition. So we've turned away more than we've actually purchased. So whilst we've done well to purchase 5, we've definitely walked away from others. I guess it really aligns to our strategy. The perfect business is about one element of improving our leverage, our buying power, and also being able to provide a customer with an alternative. There are the gap between the 2 or 3 what we would call largest players in our market, and then everyone else. We feel that there's a hole there, so we're looking to take that hole and sit just slightly under those multinational groups. But we're very deliberate in our approach, and we are always looking at acquisitions. I guess from a debt point of view, having a market cap of 12.5 million, we only really went into debt 12 months ago, or almost 12 months ago. So it's the first time we're doing that, and with covenants and everything else that we're managing well. We boosted up our financial area by bringing in a CFO who was a former group financial controller of Automotive Holdings. So his portfolio was about 6.5 billion. He's now, obviously there's a few zeros less on that, but the principles of of how he manages the capital structure in our organisation, and also our reporting tools, which we have full visibility of every business live in terms of its transaction as well as its inventory, our cash management, everything has been really advanced. So we're a business that actually has the capability to double in size tomorrow, and we've got all the platforms sitting in place to be able to onboard that.
Good question here. Someone's asked, Have you considered initiating an annual membership pricing model similar to a Costco or an Amazon Prime, where there's that stickiness to your customer?
Yes. We do have that already in the C&L Tools business. And the Heatley's business, which is going for a hard launch of its B2C platform in Q3. Everyone does it. So we've thrown out and probably debated this over the last 6 months. What is the right membership, loyalty program we put in place, and making sure that it adds real value. So discount of 5%, I don't think attracts anybody, or getting points that they can build up over a period of time for one-off purchases is not loyalty. So I think we're pretty close to being able to come up with the right structure that when people join us, they actually can speak about us highly and say this is actually value for not only the money that we're bringing, but also the service that we can provide to them. There's a whole range of things that people do. There's some really good programs. There's some not so good programs. We just haven't come to a landing on the perfect one, because we put ourselves in the eye of a consumer and say, would we want to continue to go back? The fortunate part is the long trading histories of our businesses that we own, 30 to 50 years, means that those businesses, you cannot undervalue unmatched basic customer service. So I think that is the fundamental of why we've been successful, really focusing on the customer and really focusing on the old traditional service. The loyalty program will be an absolute bonus for us.
Now, just looking at brands, you've got a number of strong brands. Have you thought about consolidating them, or the longevity of those brands and the history they've built? Is it best to just let them keep running as is?
So making ourselves more relevant with those brands, I think, is important. Again, you've got a number of big players in different markets who continue to promote that, but the value proposition, I guess, at some point really becomes a price point. The mix, I guess, of our strategy is really simplistic, is that we will continue with those brands that and large players who invest heavily and are well-known brands in the market, and people will want those for its tradition. There is a mid-tier range that is a basic brand with a different price point that won't have the life of longevity, I guess, that the big tiers do. But the growth for us, which is where our margin will increase, and this is proven in a number of international markets that we've seen on peer groups that we watch closely, where we can get between 60% GP and 100% gross profit contribution, is our own brands or exclusive brands. So we will end up having a mix of our own brand, mid-tier and high-range brands, so that we're providing quality. We won't be going cheap, but what that does, it gives the customer more options. So we're about providing many options, choice for the customer, different price points. And I guess to do that, you've got to have an expansive assortment of range, almost endless.
There's a question here. So remuneration STIs, management STIs are based on revenue and EBIT, but yours is based on NPAT. Is there a reason for the difference?
Well, really simplistically, I'm the larger shareholder of the organisation, and my focus is on NPAT. So NPAT is aligned to shareholder value. NPAT is aligned, obviously, clearly to EPS. So, I don't think I should get anything myself if it doesn't bring value to shareholders. My management or executive team, they are the key drivers of managing the customer and the activity and the people on a day-by-day basis. So I can control the capital investment, they can control the actual day-to-day trading. So that's where the alignment has been made.
Look, and it's I can say from looking at hundreds of companies, it's a very smart and well thought out strategy, because you're actually linking the STIs to the drivers of the respective elements to the business. So you should be congratulated for that. Now, you've historically quoted in this announcement and this presentation an 8% EBITDA margin through full year 25. Is that an achievable goal, and is it something that you think you will grow from 25 onwards, or is that a level you want to get to and maintain?
So I've been really consistent in the 8% target, and that hasn't just been a number pluck. There's been a significant amount of analysis that's gone into that. It's really about getting scale, and I think the scale of getting to 100 million in revenue allows us to then start being more of a relevant or dominant player. And in doing that, we can be more strategic with our suppliers. We can improve our supply chain and really make sure that that's optimized. We can, through collective buying power, negotiate better prices, better long-term incentives as our volume spend goes up. But also what happens with these new contract customers, it's business that comes into our organisation that our traditional cost to serve, if it's not 22 or 23%, then on new contracts, it should be sitting at somewhere between 12 and 14. So you actually achieve a higher margin because your infrastructure is already in place. It's the people element that you need to put to that. So if you've got your technology that we've invested in, you've got your supply chain infrastructure there's in place, then it's only the variable component. That's where we're going to increase our margin. Our target is clearly on the peers that we've looked at, 12 to 14%. Our strategy is aligned exactly to that strategy. It's tried and tested in those businesses, and those businesses that are in international markets, we don't believe that anybody operates under the same methodology within the Australian market, and that's why we're doing that. But having our own brands is going to be key to that. Our margins in the UK, from an online perspective, are about operating at 53, 54%. So, as my chairman always says to me, no one ever negotiates too hard on online sales. So whereas they walk into the store, they will. So I guess having that blend really allows us to, achieve greater than 8%. And that's, in my view, really conservative.
Well, I can tell, Mike, your shareholders looking at the questions that come through, like you being conservative and like you being consistent. So congratulations for that. A great presentation, a strong foundation clearly built with a big platform and a clear strategy ahead. So, Mike, congratulations, and we look forward to following the story.
Great. Thanks, Dave. No, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thanks, everyone, for being part of this Share Cafe Hidden Gems webinar today. I hope you found a hidden gem, and at the very least, you'll have a few more companies to keep an eye on as they execute their plans over the coming months. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you next week.